everyone, and welcome back to Blame It on Marketing with Emma and Ruta. And we are joined by two very special guests today. And we are going to be talking about all things customer marketing, probably a bit of advocacy, and also touching on stuff to do with customer success, obviously. So I will kick it over to Alice. Please introduce yourself to everybody.
Thanks, Emma. My name's Alice, Alice Edwards. I am Australian living out of London. I work at an AI startup, but my background has always been in sales and CS, so it's definitely just more focused on the people kind of process. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Klenda, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Klenda Martinez-Gasbarro. I live in the greater Boston area in this small town called Belmont. It borders Cambridge. Might seem familiar to you all. So I work for a company that does workforce management and HR software, also in the greater Boston area. I've worked in marketing for almost 10 years now, and I once worked with Emma, also worked with Alice and another startup. So I'm really excited to be reunited with everyone here.
Wonderful. So why don't we start with, getting straight into it? Why is it that so many companies are absolutely terrified of letting marketing go anywhere near their clients?
I think the polite way to say is it's different goals and everybody gets scared. It's like every department has different goals, and I feel like no one talks to each other sometimes, and it becomes this like, oh, this is ours and this is yours, and it becomes this like concern over who owns what relationship. And it's like CS is very protective. I'm protective of my clients, I know that much. And it becomes that thing of like, if marketing gets involved, will something go bad? Will a relationship go kind of turn down the wrong alleyway because you're bringing someone new into it? When in reality, it can possibly cause a bit of friction, but it can also do the polar opposite where you have this magical little advocacy process, and it really grows a whole relationship rather than diminishing it. But I think it's always who owns what relationship and just the worries of what it could do.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% on that one. And it comes down to a lot of times trust. No, I've never worked in CS, but I have been in sales before. And, having that trust with your clients and building that, it takes so much time. And you want to keep those good relationships. You want to make them into great relationships. And you know how easily that can be disrupted with any sort of variable. So yeah, on the marketing side now, like I get it, and definitely want to make sure that, whenever I go to CS or any other group that interfaces regularly with customers, like this is what I'm thinking, this is what we've seen, what's the story on your end, what is the customer, is this the right time, how can we work together, do we come back in a year, depending on the situation, right? But definitely respecting that this is a customer relationship, and keeping things green on a daily basis is number one top priority. And yeah, Alice, I agree with you too that competing goals, and the business does need advocacy, does need testimonials, and like how can we all be on the same page with that, and making this a shared goal. And I had this a friend of mine, Emma, you know her too from Secure, a previous company, and she always says, and I absolutely agree with her, like make CS the hero, make the customer the hero, because it's not for that group that is maintaining that relationship, we have nothing to start with.
Yeah, I think it is. It's this fundamental thing that's wrong with the goals, where it's like customer success's job is to retain and to deliver value to their clients, right? And then marketing's goal, or the perceived goal, is that we're coming along to just ask for stuff, so to take value away. When the reality is, if it's set up right and there is that trust and there is good communication between the the two groups, the two departments, then actually the ultimate goal is always and should be advocacy. But it's never usually pitched right, is it, guys? It's always kind of like marketing are going to come along and ask people for stuff, and customer success are like, hell no, please don't do that. Leave my clients alone. And
the nickname is Need. Klenda, you know what I mean?
Talking about that risk factor, talking about that risk factor of things potentially going bad with your clients, I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. I hope he hasn't been cancelled and I'm unaware, but if he has, oh well. But he talks about being scared of stuff and then thinking about the actual eventuality of it happening and what would happen if it happened. So I wonder how much of it is like perceived fear and how much of it is actual like lived experience. Shit went down really, really bad. I don't know if you guys have some stories to share.
I mean, maybe is the it's the what do you say, what do you not say vibe. But I think my previous company asked a lot of some clients, and it was always like you ask a lot, but you're not always giving something back. And I think the hard thing is that I always put it in the perspective of if I'm a user of any type of software and I'm working with a CS manager, I have got 25 other tech stacks. I've got 20 other customer success managers that I talk to, that I have a relationship with, the same way that you guys do. You have platforms and softwares, and you always talk to somebody. And it's like, how many times are they being asked to do something by that range of tech stacks? And it's like, you've got to ease it. Like, it's got to be like, okay, can I please, like, would you guys be open to doing XYZ, whether it's a case study, a reference call, anything like that. But then at the same point being like, great, thank you so much for your help. Let us reward you with something else. Or like, whether it's take you out for beer or take you out for lunch, or like, we used to send backpack gift things and everyone used to get so excited over it. And Emma and I used to sit there laughing about it. Like, people got excited about stickers, but it's like, sometimes you've got to just give back a little bit more, because I feel like we ask so much. And although we think it's not something, it takes somebody away from their job and possibly doing something else with their team or anybody, like, it's the balancing act.
Yeah, Alice, I completely agree with you. What can we do to give back? And not only that, references is common, right? Especially with customers that are really exploiting your platform well. Everyone's going to chase that customer for a reference call. And if you, depending on the organization size, I mean, you might have BDRs calling on customers depending on how it's set up. Like, so many people within just one organization. And then, like you said, there's so many other tech stacks. We got to make it easy and got to keep it reasonable. So yeah, I have known people to be burned by that in the past, and now it's like, nope, door is shut and it's never going to open. And I think that's, like, that's cause and effect, right? So keeping it reasonable, but also understanding, the cycle. Like, are we in renewal period? Is there a big event going on? Are we trying to invite them to one of our user conferences? Like, what is more important at this point in time? And when is a better time to ask for these things? And kind of what I like to say with my peer group back at my office is, this is why it's always a good idea to have, your stash of clients and understanding what they're going through, so that you can sort of, I don't want to say go down a list, but you can approach, you have your group of people that you can approach at certain times for certain different things. Like, maybe it's a webinar. Maybe it is that reference call. Maybe it's a testimonial. So you can sort of mix it in and like really understand better what type of ask is appropriate at that moment.
Yeah, and I think for me, the biggest risk is the fact that people do these asks and it's all over the place, right? It's like, oh, sales have said they need a case study, so I need to do one right now. Or, oh, we need someone for a webinar. Oh, we need to do it right now. The biggest risk is if you don't have an actual advocacy program, you can't systematize it and you can't then control when people ask for stuff. And that's what annoys me about people when they're like, oh, we don't have time to do that. But you do have time to piss off your clients. Like, because that's the reality, right? It's like, oh, I don't have time to run this program, but I'm quite happy annoying everybody and losing all that goodwill that you've built up with people. So it's like, just do an advocacy program if you're going to ask for stuff.
No, I reckon it's so true. I reckon the worst one is always the multiple marketing emails. And I'm sorry, but like, if someone sends a client like 12 back to back, I literally had it with a client, 12 back to back emails. And I was like, that comes up with like, wait, your client is like, have I gotten into like a spam folder? Like, what exactly is it? And you're like, no, we just have a really aggressive marketing team, but it's okay. Let me just go chat to them. And then they're like, oh yeah, no, we just thought they'd really want to do this. And you're like,
not 12 emails want to do it.
No.
Guys,
if they haven't signed up, ease off, mate.
Can I add another risk based on what you've just said, Alice? Is that people don't integrate their customer success tools with marketing tools. So we have no idea. So the 12 emails go out. Maybe that person in particular was shit and they shouldn't have done that. 12 emails is definitely, that's a bit hardcore. But if your systems don't integrate, how the hell does anybody know what's going on with anybody? Like we have suffered this, haven't we, guys? We've been there with the systems not integrating.
I think that's the norm. Like, unless you're in Salesforce and you're using Salesforce marketing and customer success systems, like marketing and customer success systems don't typically talk by default at all. Like, that's not a normal thing.
It adds in the whole product thing as well. Like, I don't think I feel like it's always easy, like go-to tagline, blame it on marketing. But if marketing doesn't even have access to the platform to see what's going on, that's always tricky. Then they're like barely talking to CS or like account managers. And then it's like, okay, so I don't really have any product knowledge. I've got a bit of an idea around what campaigns they've been in the past because of your marketing platform, but then I have no idea around customer health, risk, like categories, anything on the CSP. So then it's just like, oh yeah, I'll just give it a go. And you're like, might be a very bad time.
Yeah, I love using a tech tool, a tech stack. I mean, because there's so many out there that solve for these problems, because otherwise you're just in spreadsheets. And then you have to call about 10, 15 people just to figure out, 1 to 2 clients. Are they okay to approach? And, that exercise should always be done, right? But if you're working off of spreadsheets or disparate systems, it'll take you a month. And then that need for testimonial, has already passed, and now you need a case study or something like that. So yeah, let's get them all into Salesforce. Your source of truth, whatever that is, please.
We all know, ladies, sitting here, that our customer base are actually the kind of maybe the greatest source of net recurring revenue, and also basically making sure that you can expand your ARR within your business, because you've got the advocacy stuff bringing stuff in, and also if you can upsell, cross-sell to customers, that is a quick win. What I find so shocking still to this very day is, and that is definitely a lot easier than new business, and especially in the climate that we're in, why don't more companies actually invest in customer marketing?
Okay, I feel like I can answer this in the easiest way, because everybody goes to every board meeting. How many new clients have we got? How many, what have we added to our portfolio? They're not sitting there going, Alice has upsold XYZ and this is wonderful. Yeah, that's a very small part of it. But it's like, it all has to come from the top of the funnel. So everybody immediately just goes, we need to acquire as many clients as possible. All of our budget's going there. And then you're like, oh yeah, there's a tiny little pot for customer retention and a little bit for anything else that you might want to do with existing customers. It's like the balance is so unproportional, because they're like, well, yeah, that you have to fill the funnel. The funnel kills me. Every sales call, fill the funnel. I don't care.
Alice, what do you mean? What do you mean top of funnel? We have you for all the customers. Like, you can implement, onboard, market, upsell, cross-sell.
Oh Literally, the woman, the jack of all trades. Like, just who needs that? Alice will solve it. I'm like, thanks, guys. Thank you for the trust. But let me run away.
Is that coming from the board level? Like, it's a fundamental board issue where the people sitting on the board are like, no, we only care about net new business, and they're not actually bothered about, and we don't make enough of a fuss about expansion, upsell, and the power of that, you know, some of these other revenue streams can have.
I think it's always everybody gets like they kind of forget about the little things. And that sounds really simple, but I think if you're sitting on a board or you're in senior leadership, you're always thinking like, what are our big OKRs? What are we working towards? And most of that will come from new revenue. And I get that. But then it's also like if you actually have great relationships with your customers, you can grow them exponentially just by having an actually great, beneficial, nice relationship. And it's all just because if you build it, sales is relationships, and we all know that. But most salespeople, they'll schmooze you for a few months, you'll buy their product, and then sayonara, you're dumped with me. And I'm lovely. I can chat the ears off almost everybody, but it's like you've got to rebuild it. And if you think about it from like a board's perspective, yeah, you've just grown it by, an extra 5, 10, 15% every quarter. That's spectacular. That should never be dulled down. But it's also saying that to get that new revenue, you need quotes, you need case studies, you need advocacy, and that all comes from your existing clients being treated well. And then they'll expand and they'll kind of do extra things, but you can't do that without investing in them. It's like one of those things, it is a balancing act, but I think people do forget new business is great. Existing business keeps the lights on. Like, you got to keep them happy.
And you can't grow without good retention rate. Like, it's impossible. Like, recovering clients is so hard. Klenda, from your perspective, so you are in the customer marketing segment, do you feel like you even see that divide in being like customer marketing versus new business marketing?
Yeah, and I think it also depends on organization type. So I've been at more scale up type of organizations where they've already done the land grab. They looked at their TAM and they sort of conquered that, right? And so now there was, oh, okay, so yeah, customer retention. Now we're at the right place. Whether that's, the timing of it, was it past, or are they right at the right sweet spot? That to be determined. But to me, in my experience, it's been more like, oh, scale up. That's what we consider ourselves now. Now let's turn to customer marketing. And that can be sort of hard to step in with a program because, you've already set up a culture that no, it's done this way. And customer marketing is really quite sophisticated. It's got a lot of nuances, and it needs its own thread, right, into your marketing mix. So it can be a challenge to sort of step in. So, I think that it can be hard to create that customer marketing department if you don't have it from day one. That customer marketing is very sophisticated, it's very mature, and it needs a lot of thought process, and you'll be so much better for it in the long run. You could probably meet your customer expansion goals much sooner than waiting for this so-called scale up.
Yeah, I think you're both being very diplomatic, because I have, when we've worked not just together but in other places, I have definitely felt that customer marketing is seen like new business's ugly cousin that's not as important. And I'm like, you do realize that when you do this properly, having worked at a business that did do this properly and did invest in it, and it basically made up a quarter of our revenue, like it was bringing in that much, and who knows what would have gone on like had it continued for longer. It's got this serious power behind it, but people, I guess maybe what it is actually quite a lot of generalist marketers, I'm gonna pee some people off now, don't necessarily understand it because it is a specialism. So the tendency is to go, oh, that's like over there away from us. And so, yeah, we kind of like get shelved and don't get enough budget or support to do what we need to do, like to do things like integrate the systems or run an advocacy program that does actually seek to thank clients, all of that kind of stuff. So we don't really ever get the budget or support that we need, because it's kind of seen as this like, yeah, we'll worry about that once we've built new business.
Well, and Emma, I think, sorry to interrupt you, Ruta, but I think also with the tech, all the tech tests that we have, customer marketing, when you bring in the data like on their usage, I mean, that's where you really make the connect. That's where you really start being much more personalized, because you have your usage dashboards that you're pulling on a weekly, almost daily basis, and you can track like, hey, they have fallen off on their adoption of this feature that they paid X, Y, and Z for. We need to spin up some campaigns like that. That is the power of custom marketing that I think a lot of people fail to realize, that when you couple that with data, this isn't just, you know, the generalist, oh, let's do an email campaign, let's hold a webinar. No, this is really impactful stuff when you look at your usage data.
Klenda perfectly cued me into this point. Actually, I was going to say, I have come across businesses where product is actually in the way of customer marketing, and it's whether you don't have the data, like Klenda mentioned, or you've actually not built the product to be able to either sometimes retain, which is awful, or there is nothing to upsell, there's nothing to cross sell. It's just not how it works. So that's actually the first hurdle. If you can't upsell and cross sell anything, like customer marketing is never going to happen. So yeah, thank you for cueing me, and I'm sure you guys have experienced that as well.
I think for me, it's either getting data out, and like I know I say that full blown Australian, so like excuse me, it's data for the British audience. Yeah, that one. But it's like one of those things where if anybody can't get, like for me, it was like setting up a CSP, like a customer success platform. Getting data into that can always be really hard, because obviously you have to work with product, you have to embed codes, you have to be able to kind of transfer and transition it out, and they always get stressed. It's like this, like, oh, it's leaving, and you're like, it's okay. It's like it's not going to end the world. It will be okay, and it'll be one of those things that helps me as a success manager, but also helps marketing. It helps everybody, because you actually figure out what's like collectively, not even just one customer, but collectively across your entire database, who's using what and how they're using it. It's like when you're on a website and you get hotspots, works the same way, but we want to understand that about a product, because then if somebody doesn't know that a survey is there, or you know, a dashboard has an extra functionality added into it, or you can download it as a CSV, you need to tell them how to do it. And it's like, you don't get that from just clicking around. Like you've got to know how it's being used, and until you know that, you can't do anything. It's just like,
I'm actually yet to even come across a startup that allows data from their product to flow into any kind of marketing situation, like where we can just see who's using what, how. Like I'm still yet to come across one. I don't know, like Emma, have you worked with anyone? No.
Not a marketing tool, no. Like the CS, you know, like Churn Zero, they will allow you to obviously plug in like your usage data and stuff, but and then you can obviously do some marketing out of it, like, you know, you can do in-app messaging and all that sort of stuff, but like it's not the same as having it in a HubSpot or a Salesforce and having your sales data, your marketing data, your CS and your product usage all in one place. I mean, if someone wants to do that, they'll be rich.
Has anyone ever used Pendo?
Yeah.
So it's a phenomenal tool. I've used it in a past customer marketing role, and you know, I'm sure it's grown leaps and bounds since I've used it. But I used to pull a lot of data usage, because depending on how you have it set up, it can track a lot. I do think you still need like some other like probably back-end usage monitors that the product team would have. But you know, I would look at my Pendo usage to see, you know, what is getting clicked on a lot. You know, share that with CS, share that with a product team, product marketing. So it can be a super powerful tool. Now, obviously you need to make the investment, but again, you're all the better for it, because I find that when you have a piece of paper, like when you can point to the data points, right? Then it kind of melts away all the perceptions or all the objections that people have, because you can't argue with a hard fact. It's like, here it is on paper, or on the monitor screen, right? And then this is what we need to do, or like, hey, how can we collaborate here? This is definitely a problem. What do we do together as a team? Who takes lead? What do I do to support, to solve for this? Because ultimately, we want that customer retention, and then long term, we want that customer advocacy.
You've teed us up nicely for the next question, though, Klenda, which is, what do you think the right measurements for customer marketing should be? When we can go to you first, and then Alice, will see if yours match up with what you think we should be doing.
Yeah, I love this question, right? Because there are so many glimmers. We have so many tools. But for me, I think it's a bit of going back to basics, is looking at their usage and what sort of package have they purchased from your organization. Where are they in the maturity, right? Like, are they a new customer 6 months in, 1 year in? What are they using, and are they fully exploiting your platform, or are they on their way? I think that's important to look at. I think we have the relationships with those customer admins that, they're the ones that sort of administering the tool in their company, getting their sentiment check. That's good, but I also think it's important to check in with the end users, because you can miss a lot, right? It can tell an opposite story than what you think is going on in your organization. So I think that is also important to, whether that's a CSAT tool, whether that's an NPS, or whether that's just like randomly calling up, trying to get more information, or, going on Reddit forums to see what folks are chatting. I think that's important to do. So I think it's a mix of, that sentiment, like whether you're pulling that automatically or just calling that in, and just looking at the hard usage data. Like, what are they doing in your platform? Where should they be at? Have they met it, or are they on their way? I think that's those are some of the key ones, I would say.
I think they're all great, but I'm gonna be the blunt person that says it depends if anybody's actually looking to measure anything. It's like, but it's true though. Like, is it a like, honestly, it's like one of those things where it's like, we can measure it and then know it's failed, or we can choose to not measure it and then just kind of potentially ignore that it may have not worked, or it's worked really well, as like a let's not risk it kind of vibe. When in reality, like, as Klenda said, keep it basics. Like, look at your retention rates, look at your churn rates, monitor it. Like, know if there's been, like, if there's your CLV, like, look at your CLV and stuff like that, like your customer lifetime value. Like, is it growing? Is it stagnant? Like Klenda mentioned it earlier, you have to look at what they purchased, and if there's no way to upsell them or grow outside of like a renewal increase, if that's the only thing that grows your existing customer base, that's not great. And that's where you've got to sit down with your product team, with your C-suite, and be like, look, this is what we need. There needs to be some way to grow it, because otherwise that's a massive chunk of your kind of book of business. It's just chilling. It's like, yeah, it goes up 5%, but it obviously depends on how much you're spending to acquire them and if that's worth it. And then your NPS and your CSAT scores, that's great. But then also look at the really honest reviews. And I think I am such a fan of G2. Honestly, peruse G2, grill G2, like any of those platforms, because people are brutal. Like, and it's great, but it's refreshing, and it's done in a way where, like, if I'm working directly with one of you, I can have a spectacular relationship with you. But you look at the end user that never talks to me or never talks to somebody in my team or my CS team, it's it's a very different user experience. Like they'll probably go through an automated user journey. They'll have a few resources, but then they're quite reliant on their internal team training. So it's like, you've got to be a little bit brutal and you've got to be like, okay, it's not personal. It's just like, we've got to take it on board and fix it. Because it all links into that like one cliche way of saying, but like holistic customer view. Honestly, I cringe saying that, but it's like every marketing person, look at the holistic user experience. And like, I get it, but like you really do. You have to like break it down to like who you deal with, who you don't, and then how it all flows together.
We've never known brutality until we've done a user NPS with comments.
Ooh,
Oh, I loved
so
it.
good.
But I tell you what, bloody loved it. Do you know what? It's because, like, so when we did that, Ruta and I used to say quite a lot when we worked together to everybody, and it was sometimes very unpopular. We used to be like, nobody gives a shit about what we do apart from us. So you have to, our job as marketing, but all of our jobs here are to make people give a shit about what we do. And then you get a user NPS and you go, see, they hate us. It's very humbling.
The buyer NPS is like phenomenal, and we're like, oh, okay, something here is not matching up, and we should probably address it at some point.
Yeah. The best one is when you send the follow-up email. You send the follow-up to the NPS and you're like, I'm so sorry, this is the feedback. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize it wasn't anonymous. And you're like, yes, I know who you are, Sandra. You're like, and it's good, but it's like, you've got to have those touch base. But it can be brutal, but it can be so useful. Like so useful.
I mean, it can make or break a renewal deal too sometimes, right? Or an expansion, like, because if you can find out early enough, or whenever you find out, if you can take the steps to rectify, it'll give you that long runway into the future. You've been able to retain that customer if you've been able to fix their problem.
Yeah. Or imagine in this sort of crazy universe where you do an NPS, a user NPS, and the users come back and say, we love it, and the admins want to get rid. Like, could you imagine I mean, that does, I know sometimes it's a bit far-fetched, but it does happen, right? Because just because an admin's like, this is a pain in my ass, doesn't mean that the users think it's a pain in the ass. Depends on what it is you're selling, what it is you do. Alice is like, nah.
It's more. You do in-product NPSs. Honestly, I am such a fan of an in-product NPS or a CSAT score, purely because I can kind of, if there are people that don't want to do it, I'll get you. I'm gonna just exclude you from it. Like I can literally be like, this is Emma's email. Emma doesn't want to do one. And then you serve it to everybody else and they wouldn't be any of the wiser, but you still get your good metrics and you get good feedback. Because also, there might be somebody who wasn't in the last pool that's new, that needs some more education, that doesn't know where like the resources are, that hasn't sat with a CS or an account manager. Like all of that comes into play. So you can't just switch it off. It's like, ugh.
Everyone's used to doing an in-product NPS nowadays. Like this is not groundbreaking by any means. So if you don't want to do an in-product NPS, the real question is, what are you trying to prevent from either finding out, or what are you trying to hide that you already know? Because let's be real.
Yeah. You know, the only other measurement, and it has been mentioned, but I don't ever want to end a podcast or like do a podcast where we don't bring up the money, you know? So like, because of course, because I'm like customer marketing brings in money. Even if, like as Alice said, you can't do the upsell or cross sell, the lifetime value of your clients should be increasing if you are doing customer marketing and you are improving retention. That's all I'm going to say. So, you know, do make sure you measure the money if you're a customer marketer or you're going to do it.
I mean, because I like having a job. I like having my benefits. I like going to see the dentist.
Honestly, fair. Like, I think we all like having a few, like at least a job. Like, you know, we just want to keep a little base minimum in there.
Absolutely. So from your guys' perspective, if a company was about to start doing some sort of either advocacy or customer marketing, how would you go about, I guess, recommending they approach that?
I think the number one thing is making sure that the expectations are reasonable. Because yes, like there's so many resources to find where how to roll out this kind of program, how to roll out advocacy. There's so much, right? But I think if everyone within the company doesn't have reasonable expectations on what that goal is it like, is it advocacy or is it retention or whatever that is, if you push too hard, too fast, you're going to run into a lot of issues and you're not going to be happy. No one's going to be happy. Then everyone is going to feel the pinch and everyone's going to start pointing the fingers. I think the number one is setting realistic expectations and maintaining that realistic expectation along the way. And, it also depends on your company, how long your sales cycles are. Because if you've got a long sales cycle, guess what? Your advocacy is going to take even longer. So you need a plan for that, but be reasonable and let the people who are working that program, let them do it. There are going to be some ups and downs, but you just got to let them do the job because it takes time to build that up.
No, definitely. And I think mine is always get feedback and listen to it. And whatever you do next, make sure that that links into whatever came out of your last query, survey, whatever it might be. But I think you have to listen to preferences. And if someone's telling you that it needs to change, you have to change with it. And I think all of the points that Klenda just made, that's so important. But then what you do next with it, it all has to flow through. And I think the other point is just, it's super simple. Just act like you care, like that you're actually willing to like listen and do stuff and like just look at whatever part of their life cycle you're in, but that you care about the customers. And I think I'm such a massive fan that like, I think my role is that I work with customers. My whole day revolves around customers, which is kind of sad, but it is true. And it's one of those things where like, it has to be a customer centric point of view, whatever you're doing with marketing or from a CS perspective or growth, you have to think about that. And you have to be like, how is this going to impact our current users, our new users, whoever's coming in? Because it all links into how that user experience will be. And I think either way, that shapes whatever happens next.
I was going to say that you can't have a customer marketing or advocacy program without actually aligning CS and marketing together so they both understand what the fuck is going on and it's not a competition. You're actually bezies and it's going to work out the best for both of you. Because if those camps are not collaborating and not crying together when things go wrong, I think it's going to be a hard time.
Yeah. Mine is very much along those lines. The first one is to align those two together. Have a freaking company goal that is about either advocacy or retention or whatever, that is then very clearly under the like, it's like marketing and CS and product are all responsible for this goal. If not everybody, but definitely that one. And then the next one is, if you're in marketing, make yourself, like Alice was saying, make yourself available for clients. So like when the one time I ran this very successful advocacy program, the reason it went so well is because I went on every single welcome call, every single one. Wouldn't matter how big the client was, how many there were. And I used to probably go on maybe like 2 or 3 QBRs a week as well. And some people would be like, well, isn't that a waste of your time? But no, because I built relationships with the client and the customer success manager. So they then knew that when I came on a call, they could trust me to be on a call and not be like, hello, can I have something from you? Because I wasn't there for that. I was there to be like, yeah, if anything, I was there to be like, oh, actually, do you know what? I was on this other call with this other client who's got the same thing. Why don't you guys meet up? I'll hook you up with each other. Is everyone all right with that? And that actually really, it's like playing matchmaker in the middle. But yeah, make yourself available for customer success and the clients. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So obviously, we've talked about some things there that businesses in general could do if they want to take their first baby step into customer marketing. But what can senior leaders specifically do to make sure that, this actually works?
Get clued in. Yeah, just clue in some more. Don't just rely on anecdotal reports. Attend a call every once in a while, check in with folks, and because it's a huge investment, not just for the folks in that department, but also for the overall business as well. And I think also, ask the questions like, hey, what can we do to improve? Or what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Because again, particularly CS, you're the ones having the conversations daily. I think just get clued in some more.
I think I would just add to that, make sure there's a budget and make sure there's resources, because they're two different things. It's like budget, but can you actually then do what you want to do? I think that's always my thing. Make sure the budget is great, but then do you and your staff have the capacity to get you to that goal? And if you don't, make sure that you as like a senior leader can make the changes to make it happen. And I think the other thing is just linking back into everything we've just said, have like a really holistic approach to how the company prioritizes customers, making sure it's all front of mind, but then also looking at like making sure your internal team is all on the same page. Make sure that there's no differentiations between what sales is doing, what product's doing, what CS and what marketing is doing, because either way, we're all getting to the same goal. And I think we all want to do great in our organizations. And that's only going to happen if you talk to each other. So it's like you've kind of got to, as a senior leader, make sure that that actually happens and that there's no friction. It's not, this is my way and that's your way. It's like we're actually all working towards the same thing, which is growing a business. Thank you. Welcome to my TED Talk. That was
yeah. I'm going to add one more thing to that. I think the CRO role has to be completely rethought in most organizations. I don't understand how current chief revenue officers are basically very senior salespeople with zero experience or interest in marketing and in CS. Like, how is it chief revenue if you give zero shits about either end of your pipeline? I do not understand. And I think if you have that person or if you're hiring that person should absolutely be the CRO, meaning their job is to make sales, marketing, and CS work together. And that means we're all going to talk together. Like it's just going to happen if that's the case. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. I think this was a very fun but informative episode. So if you would like to find out more about these lovely, lovely, lovely CS and customer marketing professionals, we will add their links to their LinkedIns in the show notes. Come join us on blameItonmarketing.com. We're hoping that Alice and Klenda will also join us so you can ask them some sneaky, cheeky questions. And yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.